All right, Chris, AEW Dynamite tonight built around the world title rematch between Hangman Adam Page, current champ, and former champion Jon Moxley. What did you think of the match and the finish?
I thought the match and finish was fine. My issue was, why are they rematching this month-long storyline that culminated in their big pay-per-view 2 weeks later? So it's not really about the issue of the match itself. The storyline is just why this week?
I think they wanted to get a TV main event out of a match that headlined a pay-per-view. It's a little... I agree. I mean, it feels anticlimactic. I mean, the match they had at the pay-per-view felt like the ultimate blow-off. Now, in defense of this, although pro wrestling's not consistent, AEW's not consistent in this, a former champ who held the belt as long as Moxley, ought to get a rematch, but that wasn't really, the basis of this. I don't think that Moxley said, hey, I held the title for a long time, I want a rematch. And, that wasn't really like the crux of it being, well, yeah, it did seem like we settled it, but if anyone deserves a rematch, it's Moxley. So that wasn't there in terms of the backstory. So all along, I'm thinking, okay, one, it's to draw a rating, but it's also a conduit to get to something else. And in this case, pivot to Darby. The thing is, as the video package showed at the top of the show, they could have pivoted to Darby at All In with him being crowd. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a match with a purpose. And to be honest, it was a good match, but it did feel like I didn't care about it the way I should, because you knew Hangman was going to win. I mean, there was no indications Moxley was going to. And nothing was going to top the intensity and the emotions and how wild their last match was on pay-per-view. So, yeah, I mean, I sort of get why they do it. I totally get your stance on it. And I think they paid a price, for having a rematch for a feud that felt like people paid to see it get settled. And I think most people felt it was.
Yeah, I agree with you. It would have been better if there was a reason for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, the rationale appeared to be that Hangman Page wanted to prove to Jon Moxley he was really the champion, because Moxley went off on his riddles again about whatever he was talking about.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense. It also doesn't make sense in the light of the MJF situation, where MJF is like, I want a title shot, and he's like, no. But Moxley didn't even ask for one, and Hangman gave him one. It just didn't make sense. I mean, they could have gone to this match with a better explanation.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and that's another issue. Just, I mean, it's tied to it, but Hangman going, MJF, you shouldn't have to you have to earn the title shot, and there's a long line of people, and that long line of people seem to be just Mark Briscoe. Yeah. If you beat Mark Briscoe, who hasn't had the most impressive record lately, they gave him a win tonight, but that was before Hangman said he's the guy you have to go through. So, I don't know. I mean, it felt kind of rerun season there too. Like I know MJF and Briscoe have been yelling at each other and stuff, but that's the path Hangman is saying MJF has to take in order to not have to cash in his contract, but instead just be sort of gifted a title shot instead. I didn't like that. I felt like Hangman was letting MJF off too easily, and MJF, if there are a bunch of people in line, I think they should all be mad at Hangman for saying, oh, MJF, you get a title shot if you beat Mark Briscoe. Not that Mark is a cakewalk, but like, what about all these other people Hangman referred to? So, and then who is Hangman to decide? That's also not part of the structure. So this is not the only sloppy thing on tonight's show. But I thought the Hangman stips to MJF, and it was sort of vague. Like, you have to go through him, you have to go through Mark, and you'll prove something. But does that mean he earns a title shot? I don't know if it was even that explicit, although we are getting the match next week.
It also telegraphed the main event that Mark Briscoe was going to win, because right before that became a stipulation. And so it's like, oh, I guess Briscoe's winning the main event. But I figured that out anyway, but it made that really clear. Yeah.
Zach Barber, just in defense of the rematch, says you answered your own question. Chris, Hangman wanted to prove to Mox his win wasn't a fluke. Yeah, I mean, that's the storyline basis for it. And Hangman offered a title rematch to a long-term champion. I think my pushback, or I shouldn't say pushback, but my issue isn't with, hey, a champion gives a rematch to an ex-champion. The issue is the optics and emotions of it, which is, it just felt like there was a peak, a blow-off, And I don't think you want to put Hangman and Mox in a position to have a 20-some minute match and have it be sort of like, well, they worked hard, but I'm kind of over it. That's my issue with it. Even without a super logical, consistent integrity to why them, integrity to the process, at least the title matches, at least if you book it and it's kind of flimsy, or making it up as you go along, make sure it's a match people aren't sort of past. And that's what I thought kind of we saw here. As Zach Barber also notes, by the way, Briscoe's won 3 of his last 4 matches. Zach, step back about 10 feet, and what's his record if you do his last 20 singles matches? I know they've been trying to build up some credibility for him, including tonight. Although if you're including tonight's match, and I assume you are, then he won 2 out of his previous 3 before Hangman said what he said. But I'm not sure. I don't have the record in front of me. So, yeah. As far as Moxley pivoting to Hangman, maybe they'll do that. Maybe we'll be complaining about that in 3 weeks. No, Moxley pivoting to Darby. What do you think about the way that Darby is being reintroduced? He's a big return. It's kind of like Moxley Hangman at the pay-per-view. It's like, all right, good, let's pivot to Darby. And we had to go through 2 weeks of Darby cosplaying Sting in the bleachers and not issuing a mission statement, not really building on the momentum of the return. It's just sort of hanging out. So to me, there's some lost momentum. This is not like, we can't regain it, but I don't know. I mean, it did feel like what happened was something that happened in the Dynamite right after All In, and we just moved on and got to it. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. They showed this great video package at the beginning, something that AEW has sometimes been criticized for, summarizing All In and what happened. And part of it was Darby, attacking and making his return. That was it. That should have been the reason for Jon Moxley to focus on him. It happens a lot when a champion loses. You kind of find the shiny object for them to focus on. So they just did all those things again. It's almost like, in my mind, and I could be wrong without seeing the numbers, it's almost like they didn't get the full, or they didn't have as many people watch the pay-per-view as they think, and they didn't get the bang for their buck, and they put a lot of that same stuff on television. So more people would see it. Obviously, more people do watch television more than that. Will watch Dynamite more than a pay-per-view. But it just, to me, seemed like a repeat. And one of the things that Hangman said was he wanted to wrestle the Jon Moxley, not the Death Rider Jon Moxley, but the Jon Moxley that carried AEW on his back. But it doesn't seem like the Death Riders are going to be any different. So.
It's kind of Cody's plea to John Cena. I want a different version of you to beat you. And again, I think they told a story to get to this rematch. I just don't think they should have had the rematch booked and then told a story to get there. The stipulation itself was also a lot of people pointing out, like, well, okay, everyone's banned from ringside. What does that even mean? If someone shows up at ringside, do they get DQ'd? And the answer, does Moxie get DQ'd? The answer was no. Security just says, you're not allowed here. Go away. And that led to distractions and chaos. But there was no teeth to the stipulation. Essentially, interference was illegal. It's always illegal. Unless there's a stipulation that says it's not, like anything goes, or the dumb rule of a triple threat leads to no rules. Anything goes. So, I complained about this last week, but I think it came through tonight. Like, everyone's banned from ringside. But if you show up at ringside, nothing happens, but you get scolded and told to leave. And it's no different than if people were allowed at ringside, because they could interfere. And if the single ref in the ring doesn't see interference, then it doesn't count. So it was just a sloppy stipulation. It was like just a little something extra thrown on there that helped tell a story that kind of felt like a Jeff Jarrett special in terms of just the convoluted, the whole string of things happening leading to the finish. And to me, I think falling back on a bunch of tropes and tired tropes and cliches with ringside interference and all that to get to pivoting to Darby, I don't know. I don't think it was worth it. I think there was a better way to tell this story. To me, I would rather have had teeth to the stipulation. If the idea is I want to beat a Moxley who I can be proud to have beaten, and then have Moxley actually fight in a different type of way for the first 15, 18 minutes and then get frustrated. And then at that point, cheat. And that would show that Moxley isn't good enough to beat Hangman in a even playing field. And then at that point, the story is Mox went back to his old ways, and Hangman then wins in 2 ways. He he still perseveres and retains the title, but he did so despite Moxley having to resort to tactics that, he vowed he wasn't going to do. I don't know. I mean, there's ways to tell the story. If we're going to have a grudge match, then Hangman can go, you lost. You don't get a title match, but I want to beat you in the ring and beat you up. But it's non-title. Like, everything is just, all the warning signs are there going into tonight that this felt like it was past its time and there's going to be some convoluted booking, and it was all just to pivot to Darby. And that's what happened. I don't think it was awful. It just didn't make sense. And you kind of have to, rationalize it. And, people will do that. And I understand having to fill TV time and trying to eke out a match on national cable. That's a bigger audience than your pay-per-view audience. WWF did that with Saturday Night's Main Event. Back in the 80s, they do the whole house show circuit or pay-per-view, and then they give it away for free on NBC. I just think there was a less clunky and more logical way to get there, and then not fall back on all the tired tropes of everyone showing up at ringside. So, I'm not passionate about it. I just think it kind of didn't feel worthy of Mox and Hangman to be part of something that felt kind of hack. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, that's pretty much it. I think it's
okay.
It's too close to the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Derek Mitchell did add in the chat, if everyone was banned from ringside, why didn't they mention the consequences of what would happen if anyone showed up, like a suspension or being fined? And yeah, I mean, that was that. Okay, let's pause and introduce the show, and then I want to talk about this thing that I haven't read everything in the chat, but has anyone pointed out the just complete ridiculousness of what we saw in the last 2 minutes of the show with that MJF video message? I'll get to that after this. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show for Wednesday, July 3rd. I want to see what Zach has to say to rationalize what I'm about to point out. And maybe, you know what? I've been humbled before. Maybe there's a good explanation for it. Anyway, this is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show for Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, and the host of various podcasts, some VIP exclusive, like the Wade Keller Hotline that I've done every day since Thursday with different co-hosts. I did a solo Wade Keller Hotline reacting to Hulk Hogan mail. Each show since last Thursday of the Wade Keller Hotline has been dedicated to a Hulk Hogan topic. His history in the AWA, the birth of the the birth of Hulkamania, even before WrestleMania, with AWA historian George Shire. Also at Kelly Wells on, we talked about merchandising. Kelly Wells, an expert in memorabilia. That's his full-time job. And we did a two-part series on Hogan's influence on wrestling merchandising and comparing some of, or just learning about from Kelly the value of some of his memorabilia and whether the scandals that he was involved in the last 10 years hurt that, and a lot more. And then as the editor, looked back at some of the WCW era of Hogan, and I got into a couple controversies with Hogan and read some excerpts of what I reported at the time, and also from Hulk Hogan's book to kind of put in context certain things. So anyway, if you're not a VIP member, good time to go VIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. So much Hulk Hogan coverage. We're also in our VIP vault running the Chris Benoit family tragedy coverage over the whole course of this month. Part 1 of my Mark Marrow interview was posted this week. I'm also, tomorrow, we're putting up a couple interviews I did on radio shows talking about the Benoit situation. And just news was developing every week in terms of toxicology reports, press releases, media coverage. And so if you want to live in kind of real time, so to speak, or extemporaneous or real-time coverage of that, that's another benefit with VIP membership. Also, I'm proud of the cover story on in the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter this week. Here's the paper copy, hot off the presses this morning, and it has on the back page a very personal story about Hulk Hogan, because I might have been the first Hulkamaniac. And I get into that, and I'm proud of that piece on the back page of the newsletter this week. It is part of VIP membership, a digital copy and an all text version. And so I encourage people to check out a 2-3 page cover story walking through Hogan's career, and then also the back page commentary from me on being a big fan of Hulk Hogan when he first arrived in the AWA, and some stories about that, and also my time talking to him on the phone and being phone pals and how it came to an end. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Lots of benefits with VIP membership, including, if you like these shows, you can get the podcast version with the commercial breaks edited out, so it's a more streamlined listening experience. But we're here tonight to talk AEW Dynamite. Noteworthy, no mention. Was there any mention of Hulk Hogan, Chris, that I missed?
I didn't hear any.
Yeah, I didn't either. I don't think I stepped away and missed it. Certainly, they didn't do a big deal. Tony Schiavone mentioned Hulk Hogan in commentary on Collision. But yeah, he wasn't part of AEW history, big part of the wrestling industry, but I get why AEW didn't do it. But I also know people are going to be upset with them and other people are going to be pleased with them. That's a whole other issue we won't get into. But we are here to talk AEW Dynamite, and my co-host is Chris Maitland from Wrestling Coast to Coast. That is part of the PWTorch Daily Cast lineup. That is free, by the way. You don't need to be a VIP member to hear a different show each day of the week with a different theme, different hosts, all part of the Torch family. Chris, tell people about your show, which they can subscribe to for free by searching PWTorch in their podcast app.
Sure. Wrestling Coast to Coast, already recorded, should be out hopefully soon. It is a show I do with my very good friend, Justin McClellan, friend of over 25 years. You talking about Chris Benoit, he's actually the one that told me about that many years ago. Texted me that it wasn't good. I remember coming out of the barbershop, but we've been friends for a long time.
Wow.
And now we do an independent show covering independent wrestling. We cover a different show every week. This week, we are covering Wrestling Open, kind of spin-off from Beyond Wrestling. They have a show every Monday, every Thursday. This show, the first one we're covering from Rhode Island. This took place on Monday, available on IWTV. A lot of WWE ID talent on the show, really involved in Beyond Wrestling at this point. And then we cover, different promotion every week, go through pluses and minuses. And one thing that we always focus on is, one, did the show make a good impression of us of explaining the things that we maybe not be aware of, and also did it give us a good reason to watch future shows? I think that's really important in watching wrestling. So that show comes out usually every Wednesday night or Thursday morning, depending on when I can get my kids to sleep.
Makes sense. All right, very good. By the way, you can watch us live on our PWTorch YouTube channel. If you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, you want to be part of the live chat, maybe get your comments read on the show, or be a video caller or audio caller. You have to be a VIP member or Patreon supporter for that. You can join us. Just look for the link in my TV reports at pwtorch.com or pwtorchvip.com, the ad-free version for our VIP members. And there's a link to the YouTube show, or you can just subscribe to the PWTorch YouTube channel. It's free, and set yourself up for alerts. But we're live after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Also, other hosts host the NXT post show and post pay-per-view shows or post PLE shows. And Brandon LeClaire and Greg Parks will be by this weekend with hosting duties and co-hosting duties on the SummerSlam post shows, both Saturday and Sunday night. So we got lots of content we're bringing you. But the number one thing you can do to support us and get the best content we put out in the most flexible formats and with a commercial-free version of a lot of things that have ads is VIP membership. pwtorch.com/govip. Seriously, great time to go VIP with all the Hogan coverage, a major figure. I'm going to continue to cover different aspects of his career. Greg Parks and I are planning to do a post Monday Night War era, post WCW podcast on what Hogan did in the wrestling ring and on TV after that. The Mr. America gimmick, the Rock match, the TNA run. That'll be coming up. I've got some other ideas too. There's just so much that Hogan was involved in. And we covered the scandal part on day one with Rich Fan on Thursday and did well over an hour on that. And we've talked about it, of course, in the context of SmackDown on Raw. And more on the flagship this week, by the way. Yesterday, Rich Fan joined me on the free for everyone Wade Keller Pro Wrestling podcast flagship. And we talked a lot for a whole hour about Hulk Hogan. And then hour two was about everything other than Hulk Hogan. So you get an hour. You can listen to both hours, or you can skip the first hour if you don't want to hear more about the Hogan situation. But that is our Blue Logo show. So be sure to search Wade Keller to subscribe for free to that. All right. So
one of Hulk Hogan's last scandals happened very close to where I live, actually. If you remember, during the 2024 presidential election, he said some comments that were picked up by a small paper in Ohio, and he, of course, had the poor timing on his Real American Beer tour to going to a supermarket in Columbus, where he was asked about those comments.
Detail it.
Sure. So he made a reference to Vice President Kamala Harris, both calling her Kamala from the 80s wrestler, as well as making a reference to indigenous people to the United States and not people from the Indian subcontinent, which he thought was a very funny racist joke. And he was on this Real American Beer tour in Ohio, but unfortunately for him, after those comments were printed in a small paper, he happened to appear on a Giant Eagle in Columbus, big town with a large paper, Columbus Dispatch, where he was asked about those comments and sort of didn't have anything to say about it. I don't know if it's because he thought he said it in a smaller area, no one would ask him, but you come to a city, the 13th largest city in the country, with a well-functioning newspaper, people are going to ask questions. So, yeah, and that was like September, October of last year.
All right. The stories never end about Hogan. And fascinating what Brooke, his daughter, said about having a falling out with him, not getting real specific. But, yeah, a lot going on with Hulk, and it's unfortunate, but of his own doing. All right. So I want to talk about, there's a number of things on the show that I want to get into, including the Christian Cage endless 8-9 minutes. I've never seen, I don't think I've ever seen Christian Cage fail as badly as he did in this promo. So I want to get into that, and there might be other points of view. The chat has a few comments making it seem like other people felt like I did. But first things first, Mark Briscoe beats Ricochet. And then afterwards, show could have gone off the air, but Briscoe says, "Hey, MJF, you said mean things about my brother more than once. Shame on you. Get to the ring right now." No one could have seen that coming. He could have won and said, "Yay, I'll see MJF next week," or I'll, whatever. Or I'm just happy I won in the show. But no, he said, "MJF, get to the ring right now." So MJF then shows up on the big screen and says, "Oh, you think I'm going to come to the ring just because you asked me to?" Totally a live segment, of course, because MJF responded specifically to what Briscoe just said. And he talks for like 2 minutes, whatever, give or take. And then MJF shows up live and attacks Briscoe from behind. There wasn't time, right, Chris, for MJF to go from the big screen to attacking him from behind.
I mean, if he's that fast, you got 7 to 2028 Olympics.
Yeah. So how do you not see the flaw in that? I mean, it's so fake. Wrestlers work hard to make their moves look real. We learned on WWE Unreal how hard WWE works to get the right camera angle. We want it to look good from this angle. We don't want to miss things. They work so hard in so many different ways. And then you have this Vince Russo-esque, I'll just say it, low IQ moment. And he's not the only one who does this. Vince McMahon has done it. Other bookers have done it. But this sort of low IQ, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Oh, that'll surprise people. But it makes absolutely no sense. Am I missing anything, Chris? Honestly, was there an explanation for this? Because MJF clearly was responding to something specific that was unforeseeable that Mark said. He might have thought and speculated maybe Mark will call me out, but he couldn't have known it. And so it felt very contrived.
I mean, the only...
Sorry, Chris. I knew Zach would say this. Do you think it was reasonable that MJF would assume Briscoe would call him out? No. I mean, it's not unfathomable, but you produce a video on the off chance that Briscoe calls him out to the ring simply because Hangman said, if you beat Briscoe, you get to get a title match. Sorry, Chris. I popped up on chat. I had to jump in.
But also, producing the video. I mean, as I was about to say, the only plausible explanation could be that he's in cahoots with someone in the truck who's playing the video or earlier or had it taped or something. But even that seems to really contrived because the match just ended. Again, Mark Briscoe could have lost to Ricochet, so it wasn't a pre-taped interview. He won the match and started talking about, he wanted to beat him up and for him to come out here right now. And yeah, it just didn't make any sense. I mean, they wanted to have, part of the problem with AEW is they want to have moments, and the moment of him being attacked from behind and Hangman Page making the save is a great moment. Though MJF did show some really great speed running to the back, so maybe he is that bad.
maybe so.
I want to have these great moments, but don't try to really figure out and map out how do you get to that moment.
Yeah. And nobody in the chat is running to the defense of this angle, other than Zach Barber just going, "Is it unfathomable?" And I'm like, it's more than a stretch that he was going to count on that. So yeah. I don't know. All right, Chris. Let's move on to Christian Cage. I feel like I'm working hard to make sense of this. He was really distracted in a weird way by a heckler, 3 times in the match. "Hey, I'm trying to conduct my business," which you're feeding the troll if you do that. I mean, you're encouraging them to keep going. You're giving them attention. And we ended up with Christian giving a heel promo, showing no contrition or remorse or introspection about what Adam Copeland said, go find yourself. And he ends up getting beat up with a, silly looking concerto. I just don't think you should do that move if you can't make it look better. But it also, to make it look better, means you could give someone a bad concussion. So maybe just pick a different spot to do. But Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian bash him, swing 2 chairs at him from opposite sides. The chairs make a loud noise. I guess maybe as an earache. Maybe that was the goal with Christian, an earache. But clearly you're supposed to have sympathy on Christian. I'm leaving the door open to the possibility they're sort of playing long ball here. Oh, Christian gave this promo where he was true to himself. He didn't suddenly turn babyface. He didn't suddenly change who he is. But it was intended to make us uncomfortable and feel that he was off his game. He was meandering. It went on and on. And I mean, there were times where I was like, heard him say 2 sentences and I'm like, okay, that and then 2 other sentences 5 minutes ago would have been plenty for this promo. Like it didn't need to last this long. And so my interpretation was it was a bad promo, but I'm open to the notion that it was so bad that it had to be on purpose. And it shows that Christian is going through stuff right now, that he's actually processing what Copeland said. He's resisting it. And the heckler was really getting to him. And that was meant to show that he's unstable and kind of shaken up by things. And now with Concerto, maybe that'll knock some sense into him. And then we're on a journey for him to kind of show us in real time rather than just suddenly turn. Is that generous, or do you think it's obvious that that's what they were doing, Chris, or are you not sure?
I think it's generous that they can maybe do that after the fact. I don't think that was his intention. He didn't start off that. And I think he started talking to the audience in a way to catch himself or maybe get people to make some noise because they weren't really yelling a lot when he was talking or being upset or really booing until he said some very unsavory things about Nick Wayne's mother. But for me, I think the hard part is that I don't know who I'm supposed to root for. He described himself what he was. I won't repeat it on the show. But then the people who he antagonized attacked him. But then part of you goes, he did all these horrible things to them. He talks about, your father being dead again and all that type of stuff. So part of you is like, yeah, maybe they should hit him with a chair.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
So I don't get, again, maybe it's part of a long journey that we'll see over time. But even when they turned on him at All In, it was sort of like, I kind of get why they would turn on him. He's been horrible to them for months.
In the chat, Mike Good too says, welcome, Mike, by the way, to the chat. Every aspect of that segment was bad. Zach Barber says Christian's promo was long and he did get distracted, but at least he owned being an asshole. Anything else would have been disingenuous. Aspen Akum says that, welcome Aspen, by the way, to the chat. This Christian promo sucked. I had to fight not getting distracted by my phone during it. For sure. Let's see if I thought there's something else. And Chris J says the Concerto was tone deaf too, right after the CTE mass shooting. This is the second time AEW has done something like this recently. And Zach says, not his best promo, but again, it wouldn't have been believable if he was suddenly a nice guy. As often, Zach, there are more than 2 choices. The bad promo and him being an unreasonably nice guy. There's also a less dragged out, patience testing, odd, not really entertaining 8-minute chunk of life that promo took up with no clear direction it was going. So there is some other option out there. There has to be, Chris, right? Like an entertaining but more brief promo that maybe conveys similar points if they're trying to make those points. But to me, this just felt like Christian is unlikable. Nick and Kip and Shane are not likable, and they're beating each other up, and I don't have really any emotions about it. So, yeah, cut that. I mean, I will say to AEW's credit, they did a better job this show than the last one I was on about previewing Collision, and also obviously with the MJF Briscoe, Mark Briscoe match for next week. But this Christian promo is like, you could have cut off maybe 5 minutes, maybe given that to something else, because maybe part of it just it was a bad day. He has been a good promo. I've been a fan of his promos for about 25 years since the ENC days. So maybe just a bad day at the office, and that happens. Mm-hmm. But it just went too long. I'm not ready to cut Christian over this. Like I'm not making a dressing move. Christian in my I don't feel every critique of someone who's a public figure and wants you to spend your time watching them or paying to see them they're obviously out there because they think they're worth watching and they're good at what they do. So I think holding them to scrutiny is just like a movie reviewer saying, hey, this is a hack movie and you shouldn't spend your money on it. Or this is a great movie. Go watch it twice and bring your friends. In this case, when I critiqued Christian, I was like, hey, he's been great. I mean, this has been like maybe the best chapter of his career in his work, but he seemed like genuinely distracted in a way that did not seem to obviously fit a story that I can piece together right now. But yes, he's really good. And I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen again and again because something really is wrong. Hopefully it was just an off night. Yeah, it's weird because when Christian's standing in the ring, I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. You know, you rub your hands together. All right, these going to make sense what Adam Copeland said. And also the downside is, do we really want to like be listening to Christian talk about Adam Copeland anymore? You know, I mean, it's like, can we kind of please move on? And I know they took a break, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, it feels like we're on a long road toward a Christian and Copeland reunion that I don't think people are going to be, frankly, super excited about. But I don't know. Maybe there's still nostalgia for the crew. What do you think of that, Chris? Like, what is the nostalgia for Edge and Christian as a team in AEW? Perhaps as baby faces against the Young Bucks or something, like they kind of get to that spot. I don't know. Or is there some other team that intrigues you? Jet Speed or something?
I think so. They haven't teamed in so long because they never did the reunion. I don't, and I have to double check. I don't know how many tag matches they had after Christian went to TNA. So because they were kind of kept on separate brands in WWE, and then Edge retired. So I think there is nostalgia there. I think you can get one last run with it, but I think you have to get to it. I think the longer Christian is unlikable, the more ridiculous it seems that Edge is trying to change him at some point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cope. Excuse me, Cope.
I'm totally fine if we never say that and we just call him Copeland. I think a lot of people feel that way.
You know, at some point it's like, okay, I tried with my friend, but he's changed or he's not responding to me. I can't spend the rest of my life making him maybe be the way he used to be and move on. Because obviously Christian is still the same person. He said it. I'm still the same person I always was. I'm not going to be any different. So at some point, Cope has to give up. I think. I mean, for me, I was a guy sitting in that was at TNA Slammiversary, and part of me had interest in a Hardy's Dudley Boys match, even though it's so many years later. But that's also billed as like the last time. I don't know if AEW will bill a match with them as like the last tag team match, but I could see them getting some traction as a tag team.
Yeah. I looked up on the internet. Apparently March 28th, 2011 was the last time that they teamed. So we're on 14 years. Still not sure that people are itching for it because they've been so associated with each other, even not teaming. But maybe they will be. And I mean, it's not like the worst idea to try it for some sort of nostalgia thing, especially like you said, if they build it as like a last time thing. Ramen Noodle in the chat goes, it will work in Canada, but I personally hope they go a different way. Ryan Solorio goes, I'm in Toronto and I'm not interested in a Copeland and Christian reunion. Zach Barber said the promo should have been shorter. I think it was important that Christian owned being an asshole and we see him change or accept him for who he is. Larry from VDBA says, another indifferent Canadian here. Derek Mitchell said, I'm not nostalgic for Edge and Christian. It's like two old guys still hanging out with younger people or some old guys still hanging out in the club. And Derek had mentioned, too, this is easily one of Christian's worst promos in recent memory. Something was noticeable tonight, like Punk's promo to John Cena before Night of Champions. Yeah, I mean, as much as I'm like kind of open to this as part of some master plan, it'll fall into place and make sense. I don't think you want to be that drag things on that long. And to me, I don't think a razor sharp plugged in Christian would want to have that 8 minutes of TV time on his record. Like I think he would have found a different way to go about it. And I'm not sure what to make of the heck. I know it's only 1,100 people in the building and Eddie's voice stands out, but did it seem weird to you, Chris, having 4 times Christian really react to a specific heckler? Like, I mean, just talk through it. He's a pro. Unless again, that's showing that he's rattled and could have a breakdown.
I didn't quite hear the heckler. I thought, and I could be wrong, that it was one of those old heel tricks of getting the crowd reaction by spending time talking to one fan to get everyone upset. Something I used to remember Ric Flair doing when I was a kid. Jim Cracker Promotions are also World Class too. So I didn't really hear the heckler. I thought initially the first 2 times it was him trying to get the crowd riled up because they were pretty silent when he was talking, but then he kept doing it, and then he seemed to lose his place even more. So, just completely off night for him.
Yeah. Zach Barber said, not his best promo, but again, it wouldn't have been believable if he was suddenly a nice guy. Ryan Solorio goes, Christian not changing or turning is the only good part of this promo. Yeah. All right. Chris, with Toni Storm in a tag match against Athena. Athena, ROH champ, pins Toni Storm, the current AEW champion. What stood out to you in that match? And and match quality wise, and the story that they told.
I thought the match was fine. It was interesting to have Athena win. The only odd thing for me was she has the contract and she's holding it over Toni Storm as she's down on the ground, and the referee's behind her, and Billy Starks is taking out Alec Windsor. I'm just thought, why don't you cash in? You have her pinned for about 5 seconds while you're on top of her. But I think they're doing a good job of establishing Athena. I think it's more important for people to see her established on AEW television as a threat, as opposed to people just talking about it on the internet or talking about Ring of Honor. It's not the same audience as Dynamite is. I think, but it's kind of awkward with MJF is that she has this contract. She's already tried to cash it in before, or attempted to cash it in. And it's almost like, I feel like it would have been better off building her having a feud with someone else, and in the background, like, oh, Toni Storm, I'm going to come for you, but right now I'm going to work on someone else, as opposed to her going straight to Toni Storm.
Is Athena Toni Storm coming across as if it is going to be an epic feud that can carry the top main event scene for AEW now until the end of the year? Like, is Athena being framed in a way, or positioned and featured in a way, and is Toni Storm keeping her momentum as she shifts into this?
Not yet. That's why I think, as I said, it would have been better for her to have a feud against, I'm trying to think, someone like, I guess she's feuding with Tekla, but someone like Willow. Like, this is kind of why in wrestling you need to have like notches of people to wrestle with. So because Athena is almost an entirely new character in AEW Dynamite, she needs to be established.
Yep.
And just giving her one win on Dynamite over Toni Storm, while impressive, and obviously she's a very good wrestler. You know, you've seen her on the Independents. It's not enough for people really to see her as someone who is dangerous and a possible person who could dethrone Toni Storm's title reign.
Taz, by the way, speaking of creating character development, for Athena would be nice, but Alex Windsor, Taz called her a tough customer, which is as generic as it gets for a new wrestler. Oh, she's a tough customer. I thought I was like watching some like WWE Network television show that Vince McMahon was hosting in 1978. It's like, oh, she's a tough customer. Very generic. I'm not dogging on Taz. It's just there needs to be some thought put into what is it about her that we're supposed to be latching onto as viewers that makes her distinct. And the announcers didn't seem to have anything kind of ready to go on that. But they did have time to tell a joke about Luther having the bottom fall out and making jokes about colostomy bags. So they amused themselves with that. That went on for a while.
Yes, the commentary isn't always focused on maybe doing the most to get the wrestlers over, but also I think part of it is that they introduced someone like Alex Windsor. I think she's came out. No, was she in the All In? She may have been in the All In women's casino golf. I'm not sure, but she just came out one day and it's just like, oh, it's Alex Windsor, and she's not someone with a big name. I don't think she's even wrestled that much in the United States.
Yep.
So you have to like present her. You have to show what she's capable of. You have to, build her up a bit before you put her in these type of matches with the champion and the number one contender, basically.
Zach Barber says, my main issue is I want a Toni Athena match, not a cash-in. I don't think they really had a great idea of how the Money in the Bank gimmick works. I mean, you don't have the deserved or aspiring former world champion number one contender MJF going, I have this, but I want a title match without him to cash it in, as some sort of weird detour to explain why he's not going to cash it in, or for a match, but rather try to earn it by having to face a tough customer in Mark Briscoe first. Like, why doesn't MJF just lurk and wait like every heel Money in the Bank winner? Probably, mostly, and wait for an opportunistic moment to cash in. Like, he has a separate thing going on. And then, as Zach says, you want a Toni Athena match. You don't want to cash in. So it doesn't make sense for Athena or MJF to have the contract on a clipboard to cash in, when I think it would have been better to give it to someone on the side who's sort of lurking while you tell the main story with Athena and Toni and with MJF and Hangman. And then you're getting kind of two storylines out of it instead of cramming these kind of together, smooshing them together in a way that I think has turned out to be a clunky execution of it.
Yeah, they're two parallel. Actually, Justin and I talked about in this week's Wrestling Coast to Coast. Wrestling Open had a open the door kind of match for Money in the Bank, where the winner got a opportunity of their own choosing, and there are far too many on the independents as well as in AEW, WWE, Impact. These sort of, I win a match and I can just sort of show up any time to win the title. I think it takes away from the booking. I can kind of get a babyface winning it and saying, okay, I want to fight the champion at pay-per-view X or pay-per-view Y. The heel having it is fine to me, but they should also be not so like, why would Athena be worrying about wrestling Toni Storm? She should wait. He should want Toni Storm to wrestle a gauntlet match against like 8 wrestlers so she can come in and get the title.
Yeah,
this
totally.
Would make more sense because of what that contract.
Also, I mean, it's just the aesthetics of it, but the optics. Derek Mitchell says, is it me or does AW Props look like they go to Party City? They have 2 contract winners carrying around a clipboard like middle school teachers coaching basketball. Is that a big deal that not only is it a kind of a derivative of Money in the Bank, it's a copycat, but it's not better. It does kind of look like someone ran to Office Depot at the last minute to pick up some metal clipboards.
Yeah, I think it looks bad because they're doing it the same way. Yeah, but with the clipboards do and they're carrying them around all the time. I mean, the Party City is no longer open, unfortunately. My wife very upset about that, but it does look very yeah. I mean, the briefcase you could actually even use as like a weapon, so it kind of makes sense to have it. But the clipboard, yeah, it just I agree with Derek on that.
Yeah, that's why I said Office Depot, because our Party City closed down too. I don't know if they all did, but
they all did. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, the Party City next to the Home Depot at the local big box mall closed down. But we still got, I don't know if it's Office Depot or Office Max. They blend in. I think they're owned by the same company now anyway. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Oh, and Ryan Solario just goes, I wish Athena dropped her ROH title. It'd just be clean. It's still so messy. I mean, ROH titles, ROH champs and belts hanging out on AWTV without any kind of, I mean, it is obviously Tony Khan's, I don't know if I want to call it a weakness. I mean, to me, it's a weakness, but it's just, he just doesn't feel structure and logic and explanation is important when it comes to certain things. And this is certainly one of them. Derek Mitchell says MJF and Athena holding a clipboard is like they're construction workers doing a building inspection. Yeah, that's another good one. So Zach Barber defends this a bit, or he creates an explanation. MJF wants the contract as a backup plan. 100% yes. I mean, that is 100%. I will even say obviously true. My point is, rewind. If MJF is going to have to go through opponents of Hangman's choosing to earn a title shot without cashing in, is it best to even waste the clipboard on MJF? And you'd say, well, it'll make sense in the end. MJF will fail in beating Hangman. As a heel, he'll earn a shot, come up short, and then he'll find a way to cash in and win in cheap fashion. And I do think that's where they're going. But is that better than having somebody else hold it who isn't going to earn a title shot? Someone who by nature is going to be a little bit more sneaky about it. So I don't know. I mean, not the worst thing in the world. It's just sort of like, if you're going to do a derivative WWE gimmick and you have Athena hanging out as an ROH champ with an ability to probably earn a title shot on her own, and MJF, same thing. He's about to earn it on his own. It just feels redundant and sort of inefficient. Why even do the gimmick when it just makes you look like you're a WWE knockoff without an original idea? And that's unfortunate. Chris.
Also on the show, MJF went to Tony Khan to have a match with Mark Briscoe for next week. But then why didn't he go to Tony Khan to get a title match?
Well, maybe I will say maybe MJF thinks that's going too far. I can talk Tony into me earning a title match, but I don't think he's going to gift me one.
But I will say that Willow earlier, about 5 minutes earlier, said that she talked to Tony Khan about getting a match with Thekla after Thekla refused to wrestle her.
Yes. A lot of people noted.
It's just weird to me where it's like, I went to Tony Khan for this match. And I'm just like, why doesn't everybody do that? Because that seems to work.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, maybe the wrestlers who go to Tony Khan and don't get their way kind of just sheepishly go in the back and don't go on TV and tell us. Maybe there's like 20 people went to Tony Khan and we only heard from the 2 who he said yes to.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. So Zach Barber earlier said that Mark Briscoe had won 3 out of 4 matches. What kind of record do you think you should have, Chris, to become the wrestler who is the gatekeeper to getting a world title shot for MJF? Should he have, like, let's say over the last 20 matches, how many matches would one need to win to be a credible gatekeeper for MJF to just skip the process of, or jump ahead in line and skip past everybody else who Hangman says is in line?
Well, I think it depends on, if Hangman's known you for 10 years or not. He's known Mark Briscoe for 10 years. So I guess anyone that was in Ring of Honor circa 2015 is eligible for it. Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole's not healthy, so he can't get one. Bobby Fish, people in other promotions. I won't go through the whole list, but I guess anyone that's known Hangman for 2015. I guess Jay Lethal, he was in Ring of Honor back then, but he's known him for that long, so he should get a title shot too.
Well, you didn't bite on my tease or my little gimmick I'm doing here, Chris. But Mark Briscoe has won 11 of 20 matches, so he's 11-9. Okay. Yeah, 11-9. Thank you, Ryan Solorio. Is that an impressive enough record to make you the gatekeeper to a world title shot and jump ahead of everyone else Hangman says is in line? Is beating somebody who's barely over 500? And quality of opposition should factor in, but we'll pretend that it's a pretty good mix of people.
I mean, it shouldn't, but they've decided to push Mark Briscoe, and I love Mark Briscoe, so he's one of the few baby faces that has remained over, even over poor booking, and so they're trying to see if good booking can actually help him. Yeah.
All right. Going back to Christian and the Heckler, a couple of people in the chat want to circle back on this. Fanbless said, I don't think there was a heckler. I think he was covering for lapses. He was stumbling even when he was talking. Ramen Noodle agrees. Seems like the heckler was just cover to give him a few seconds to think. I wouldn't rule that out. I mean, I don't rule out that we wouldn't hear a fan specifically heckling him. But hey, quiet over there. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I pretended someone was yelling at me. I mean, it's possible that Christian was doing that. I don't rule it out. I think that's maybe more concerning than being rattled by an actual heckler, is having to make up a heckler in order to regain your train of thought. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it changes the narrative much other than, the detail of it. Certainly Ric Flair would often do that. He'd yell at somebody, some mystery person in the crowd and go, oh, you're, whatever. He'd insult some fan's physical appearance. But there wasn't, sit down fat boy or whatever you'd say, but there wasn't anyone he's really looking at. Maybe sometimes he was. I mean, I can't rule that out either, but that could have been a thing. But I don't know, Chris, that doesn't make me feel better about it.
No, as I said, I think it was just an off day, and I don't know if it's because I don't know how AEW, if their promos have to be recited perfectly, or they have bullet points they're just supposed to get across, or he decided to he was just rambling and just kept going for a while. I'm not sure, but it's an off day. I guess we'll see how they can manage it going forward.
Yeah, it seems like an off future. Do you think Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian with Shayna are ready to be the main people in a faction at this point to take on perhaps Christian and Copeland?
I think they could, as if they were babyface. I mean, if they were baby faces, because they were for a long time the wronged party, and Christian didn't really give any sympathy. So I can't really take them that seriously as heels, but I can take them as people who are angry at someone who's wronged them and are getting revenge, but they just don't. But there's a minimal lack of seriousness with them.
Yeah. All right, let's pivot to another MJF topic, and that is the weird seeming end of Hurt Syndicate and MJF in their alliance. No MVP, no Bobby Lashley this week, just Shelton Benjamin. And Shelton said, we've been on to you the whole time. You gave me a fake Rolex that exposed that you were not sincere. and we're done with you. Go away or else. And now MJF's just moving on as a heel to face Mark Briscoe and then presumably Hangman. I don't really get why we went through all this. Haven't seen for sure the ending yet. So caveat, this might all tie together and make sense. But last week it felt sudden. To me, it did not feel, and other people have written it and said it too in the chat last week and in columns on PWTorch. I mean, it's just like there's a feeling that something just kind of steered in a sharp, different direction that then made logical sense. How did you feel about it last week, Chris? Because I've talked to you about it. And what did you think about what seemed like an official breakup this week? I don't know if we'll ever. Maybe this is leading to the lawyers who talk to each other about stipulations, and there'll be something in there. But it didn't even seem like the follow-up was hinting at that. It almost kind of felt like just writing it off and getting out of it. And again, I'm not saying this is what happened, but it is not inconsistent if we were to have a wild speculative theory that in real life, like Bobby Lashley and Shelton and MVP said, I don't want to even be in a program with MJF. He's so annoying. Like legit went to Tony Khan, said, we're going to quit if we have to be on camera with this guy. And Tony's like, okay, we'll break him up quickly. But Shelton, you're willing to do at least a 20-second segment to break up? And Shelton's like, yeah, but that's it. And then I won't ever want to be within 20 feet of him again. Like that feels more realistic to me, as wildly speculative and unfounded as that is. Then this was a master plan that's going to have some master payoff. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Am I making more of it? Do you think this? Maybe are you thinking? Because some people think this. Well, it's not. It wasn't great, but it's following a storyline. Just hang with it.
It seemed to me to come out of nowhere. This is like one of those. If I date myself wrestling in the days of like studio taping, they taped 8 episodes and then someone left the promotion and they kind of spent 5 minutes and go, oh yeah, that person's gone, we need to move on. It just didn't really make a lot of sense. There wasn't any sort of crack in the armor. It seemed like 2 weeks ago they were on the same side and at least at All In as well, and all of a sudden I know that they had the promo where MJF said he was like the best in AEW and Bobby Lashley kind of looked to the side, but I said, okay, they may be building something here. But then like the next week he flipped out because MJF said, why are you helping Cope? And for it to go down that road pretty quickly, I thought was kind of odd. I did like Sheldon's promo. I did like how he carried himself, but all the time that AEW spent building it together, which I thought was probably one of the better portions of their show overall over the last several weeks, have it end really quickly, and MJF not even feuding with them. He's feuding with Mark Briscoe, and they are going to wrestle the winners of the tag team tournament. So it's like it's almost like they completely split. They're on opposite ends of the world.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we don't have the benefit of knowing what's going to happen in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but right now it feels sudden and jarring, and like we missed something along the way. And I did feel like, wait, did something happen on Collision? Is there something outside of canon that we're supposed to be believing is part of canon? Like that explains this? Because they spent weeks investing us in this story, Chris. A good amount of time was spent on this, and it seemed to have potential. And now we got this. So I don't know. I mean, the idea that MJF just like ran his mouth a little bit too much last week and it set off this rapid breakup. I mean, that's not true. That theory is not true, because Shelton said we've been on to you the whole time. But they sure delighted in MJF helping them cheat. I mean, I mentioned at the time when they got together and they had, I think it was on pay-per-view, they had the match and MJF was helping them, and Bobby's like, yes, this is great. We have someone helping us cheat. Wasn't like he was reluctant. So I don't know. It feels like another bad storyline with MJF that isn't really going to ultimately hold up to any scrutiny.
Yeah, and Derek mentioned in the chat the Jeff Jarrett thing from earlier in the year, where they spent a lot, like 3 weeks. That was like a major storyline. Yep. Then he didn't even have a match with you. Didn't MJF have Dustin Rhodes instead? Jeff Jarrett went to the pre-show of the pay-per-view and never to be seen again. Yeah, I mean, and maybe that was Tony Khan listening to fans and critics thinking, it's too copycat John Cena, and Jeff Jarrett is not as big of a deal as he's framing himself to be, and maybe looked at minute by minute numbers and he abandoned it, or maybe the idea was, no, we're just gonna have Jeff just move on. And
I don't know, but yeah, it is weird. Adam Kidd says it's like they feel they don't 100% know what they want to do with MJF. Derek Mitchell stating a chalk up MJF joining and presumably leaving the Hurt Syndicate right up there with MJF's old program with 50-year-old Jeff Jarrett. You were referencing that. Adam Kidd said it almost made me think Bobby is hurt. Yes, I mean they talked in this cryptic way. He's out of the picture now. And MJF wasn't, or MVP wasn't there because he was mad at MJF. So maybe there's some news there. Chris J said the Hurt Syndicate ends in some rundown ballroom basement. Quite the fizzle. Shelton calling out the Folex was good, though. Let's see. Derek Mitchell said, I guess Hurt Syndicate agency didn't want to get paid tonight beating up anybody. I said from the start, the tease and addition of MJF was up, and it was presumed Cedric would join AEW. Aspen in the chat says, was I the only one bothered by the fact that the Hurt Syndicate had such a raggedy looking locker room? I mean, that's an issue. Tom Martin brought that up a couple weeks ago on The Fix when they did residency here. It's over after tomorrow night for Collision, but it's a really cool looking building. But yeah, it's the locker room area has a door that looks like it's been through 100 years of being painted and repainted, but not repainted recently. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a charm to it. It's not like a big deal to me, but people are noting it that it does look kind of minor league.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what happens when you put a show in these ballrooms. I drove by the Manhattan Center when I was in Manhattan last week, and it reminded me of some shows I went there. But I don't know if those shows are the best to replicate several episodes of a TV show in 2025.
I think that there needs to be a mix of arena sizes for AEW to keep their image as being. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase. I'm trying to avoid saying challenger brand because I think AEW wants to be perceived as something more than that. Because a challenger brand can run small buildings and be a challenger brand, but AEW wants to be a place that's known for big attendance at Wembley and in Texas and filling big buildings for pay-per-views or having 10,000 people give or take and it looking great. So the residency or just running smaller buildings is charming. I mean, I like it. I think it's smart. I think there's an intimacy to the energy that's better than a big cavernous building that's darkened with cameras having to very, 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 very carefully aim only certain places. Greg Parks wrote a column on PWTorch.com today. I hope everybody had a chance to check that out. Check out PWTorch.com every day. There's some good writers making you think every day on that site, working hard, and I think it's worth your time. And Greg Parks' column talked about liking the venue because it's a livelier atmosphere than if 1,100 people are spread out over 1,800 seats, or even if 3,000 or 4,000 people are spread out over a 10 or 18,000 seat building. This venue looks better, but you can't only run there. You can't only run in these smaller venues. You need to break it up by reminding people that this is a big that this company is a big deal and runs big buildings also. So. Yeah, I don't know anything to add to that, Chris. I mean, I like the smaller buildings. I like architectural variations, and it shakes things up. But they need to run big buildings too. They can't only run these smaller venues year round on TV.
I mean, when they do the smaller venues, it looks more like Sinclair era Ring of Honor or Impact. And I have nothing against either of those promotions. I like them both, but that's what the show looks like.
Yeah. What else stands out from Dynamite tonight, Chris? I'll throw to you if there's something else specific you want to bring up that we haven't yet. Otherwise, I'll throw some other things out there.
Sure. The last time, and typically I'm not here on Wednesdays because we do our West Coast to Coast. But last time I was here, I not only talked about a topic, but I actually ended up providing a topic for .net Weekly.
Yeah,
Jason Powell and Jake Barnett talking about the Young Bucks, who are in the opening match here. It was interesting that they got the local town entrance of not being introduced.
I love that. It was a jobber. Yeah, the jobber.
Yeah,
even the soft and Justin Roberts. It's the Outrunners, and in the corner of my left, the young Matt and Nick Jackson. Just very soft, and then of course they're throwing a fit over it.
Yeah. So I mean, they had their digital tag team match. I I saw the Outrunners. Justin and I went to a Collision show in September, right before he got married, and the Outrunners were one of the most over acts on the show. Now, it was Collision, a non-advertised show, but they were very, very popular, and AEW never really capitalized on that. I was hoping that they would hear. It was a typical Young Bucks match, but they are not as over as maybe people think they are. As well as it was very weird, the commentary. Tony Schiavone, who's typically the babyface commentator, was going on and on about how great they were, but then at some point Nick hit a move and was out there yelling at him, and I'm like, I guess you can't hear what he says. I understand, but he's saying great things about you the entire time, like it's like his job depends on it.
I am enjoying the Young Bucks right now as heels who have lost their power. Stokely said, "You guys have lost your status, right?" And then he kind of drops his crutch and like lunged at him or something like that. Like people who have power and then lose power, and they're jerks when they have power, get their comeuppance, and having them throw this fit that they're not getting proper treatment, and to have the Outrunners of all teams, these goofy. By the way, Taz had a great time with the Newport reference. He's like, if you know what I mean, the Newport cigarettes and the Outrunners. Do you think is it intentional they're dressing like the Newport cigarette packaging and logo, or do you think it's a happy accident?
I don't think so. I think it's an accident, but it works out. I mean, Newport's that's an 80s thing, definitely. They're an 80s act, but
you can Newport might have had their logo and color scheme in the 80s because it was cool in the 80s, and separately from that, the Outrunners are emulating the same thing Newport did accidentally on separate tracks, or they're genuinely imitating Newport. I mean, if you Google Newport images, it is that blue color that was that kind of teal blue, like the San Jose Sharks took on a similar color when they expanded in the NHL. A little bit different, but along those lines. So I don't know. But Taz was delighted with himself with repeated references to Newport. But I think I was making a different point than that, which is I am enjoying the Young Bucks being humbled and having to not have all the benefits of EVP status. And I think it was important for them to have the segments in the lead up to that, to losing EVP status, one, to create believability that I might lose the EVP status, but also have a big contrast now. Having them, complaining backstage about it and then not getting the introduction, but they did win. They're moving on. And I wouldn't be shocked if they win the tournament. They cross paths with FTR in what would come across as a teaser that's going to be the finals. I don't know if they've teased any other potential finals, because the Bucks face the winner of, and I'll say it, Brodito against Gates of Agony, which is on Collision tomorrow night, and then FTR take on the Bang Bang Gang. I mean, does it seem obvious, Chris? We're headed. I mean, is there a second option that you'd consider for the finals besides FTR and the Bucks? With, I guess FTR is. I don't know who's the faces in that situation at this point. Or does Tony Khan care? Yeah, for I know.
For me, it's FTR.
Yeah.
But so one of the things that AEW has as a problem is they took a dream match that a lot of people had, FTR versus the Young Bucks. I think they've only wrestled 3 or 4 times. And when they were like interacting in the back, I was like, I don't want to see that. We've had they had their matches at the pay-per-views, and we moved on from that. I think that they are, the FTR has been more engaged with the Hurt Syndicate since Cope paid the Hurt Syndicate to attack them, so there seems to be more of a greater reference there. But it did make me think of one point when I was here last time, and I wanted to mention this because of the whole Young Bucks, the greatest tag team thing. I had a conversation with my good friend and Torch contributor Rich Fan about this, and I named 5 tag teams of their era that I think are better than them, in my opinion. And they are, FTR is one of them, Motor City Machine Guns, the Usos, the New Day, and the Briscoes. So
I was going to say, you better say the Briscoes, because they're decisively a great tag team that gets overlooked a lot.
My argument is, and people may disagree in the chat if those 5 are better. There's some other ones I thought you could argue better. I'll leave them out. But if you can actually argue that 5 teams may or may not be better than them, all from their era post 2010, then they're not the greatest tag team of all time.
Aspen says, I'm not a Bucks fan, but the gag of them getting jobber entrances and an empty nameplate got me too laugh. Kyle Fassel says Brody King and Bandito should not be a team together. They should be doing their own singles thing on TV weekly. At least we got brackets this week. They got that all figured out. Yeah. So I don't know where the Bucks are landing ultimately in this journey, but we did see them reunite with Okada on today's show. That was after the Bucks beat the Outrunners. Okada came out to triple team or do a 3-on-2 beatdown, and then that was an excuse for Swerve to come out with Prince Nana. Although Prince Nana sure danced for a long time while the Outrunners were getting beat up. And then Swerve kind of marched to the ring. So we got it was a portal, an excuse, a path to get Okada and Swerve on the screen in a natural way that felt very contrived and unnatural, despite the framing on TV. So yeah, how'd you feel about Okada kind of hanging out with the Bucks again? Not even though he's with Don Callis' family. They didn't break up. It's not like it breaks anything. It just felt like that should be a bigger deal.
It didn't make sense to make the whole convoluted Okada with Don Callis when Don Callis didn't really help the feud in the match with Omega, but it looks like they just wanted him to be there to have a spot in the match. But I think it's good that they're setting this match up. I mean, it's kind of weird for Swerve, who was so focused on the world title for so long, and now someone who he's begrudgingly got a respect for has it, and he's more focused on this other title. But Okada did say that he was upset that he took their EVP status. They're obviously setting up a match for Forbidden Door, but it was kind of contrived. Also contrived how they all when they bailed from the ring and they all stood by the corner and just in time for Swerve to do the Swerve stomp on them. Yep. They didn't run like MJF. Maybe he can teach them as heels how to move out of the way. But I think it's a good way setting up that match without spending too much time.
It would be nice if some things that are just done without thought were cleaned up, and the contrived dives with people standing around waiting to be landed on, and then overshooting what they hit at the end hit Marina Shafir but missed Claudio. Darby. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Darby hit Shafir in the security but overshot Claudio and Wheeler. And mistakes will happen, but it happens so much where these dives don't really land. And it's I don't know. I mean, there was a bad pin breakup in the Young Bucks match with the Outrunners, where I think it was Nick who broke up a cover on Matt by simply just hitting the Outrunner on the back, but he just flew over him, and Outrunner's still on top of Matt, and Matt's shoulders were still down. Matt should have lifted his shoulders, unless it was Nick. I can't remember who it was, but it was just super sloppy. Like, at least lift your shoulder during a pin breakup. If someone is ostensibly breaking up the cover, don't just lay there and have the ref just needlessly stop counting because somebody flew past him and overshot everybody. And so the pin breakups is another thing that just it's done sloppy, and it'd be good for everyone to sit down and watch the show with a non-fan who's willing to engage and like invest and go, okay, I'll watch this and give you my feedback, and have them just talk about all the stuff that looks super fake. And of course, wrestling fans are used to it. It's baked in. They still pay their money. They still enjoy it. But I think to grow the audience, to immerse people in it, and frankly, I think people would enjoy the product more if even the things that they don't notice were cleaned up more. There's been a big improvement on pin breakups this year, but this was a weak one tonight. And I will say, and I don't know that there's a direct through line or tie-in to this, but there was there were AEW chants tonight, and it was like, why aren't you cheering for Hangman? Like, why are you chanting AEW for a good spot? You should be invested in this. Gives Hangman an advantage. Now he might win. It was after they were on the announce desk, and Mox took control, set up a move in the announce desk, came and countered into a dead eye, and both were down and slow to get up, and the fans just chanted AEW. Like, we're seeing exciting big spots at ringside, as opposed to Hangman made a comeback and now he has an advantage. Let's chant cowboy shit, or let's go Hangman, or whatever. It's hardly isolated to this show, but like, to me, that's a problem that should be addressed behind the scenes. Maybe in a future episode of WWE Unreal, we'll see a booking discussion with the new stars of WWE, all the writers that are now, we're putting faces to names as they get their Ed Koskey and company get their talking points on air. So I don't know. I mean, that was, it's there every week. There's things that happen every week, but this is awesome. And whatever, chanting the name of the company when you're supposed to be invested in the outcome of a match and cheering for someone to win is not ideal. It's better than a dead crowd, but it's not ideal. And it doesn't seem like they're working towards fixing that.
Is ECW to blame for that? In my mind, I feel like that was the first time I recollect seeing it, is people chanting for a promotion and not a wrestler.
Yes, but ECW was a cause. It was this counterculture movement to push back against staid WWF and WCW derivative, bland, family-friendly plumber gimmicks and mini movies with everything WCW is doing, preceding it.
Cheatham, the
Michigan. Yeah, yes. So ECW was a movement, and it was not a challenger brand. It was just this third alternative brand, and it existed as sort of a rock concert disguised as a pro wrestling show. AEW is trying to be a pro wrestling show. WWE is trying to be a pro wrestling show. So is AEW to blame, or is ECW to blame? I don't know if blame is a word, but it certainly initiated the idea of brand loyalty, brand loyalty, brand loyalty. But it just feels really kind of embarrassing and passe. And I'm sorry if people listening to this are participating in doing this. I don't mean to personally insult you, but it's kind of embarrassing to be at a show where they're trying to tell a story. And it's embarrassing for the company, not the fans, to be trying to tell a story of here's a hero against a villain, and the stakes are high, and people are chanting for the governing body that booked the match as if we're here to see exciting moves. There is no shortage of exciting moves. There's no shortage of spots at ringside and dives and all of that. The high art of wrestling is not acrobatics and high impact spots. It's telling a story where people get pulled into the emotion of it and the drama, and they buy that this counts, that there's going to be a finish, and it's going to change the course of wrestling, and everybody is here to find out who the best wrestler is, and there's titles to represent it, and the title's at stake, and I like this guy, and I don't like this guy for good reason. You should, if a company and booker's doing their job, the fans shouldn't be thinking about rooting for the company as if, take that, WWE, AEW is great. They should be thinking about, go Hangman. And to me, that is a sign of something that needs correction, deliberate correction, Chris.
I mean, I agree. Again, I do a show with Justin on independent wrestling, so I see chanting for promotions every single week. But I think part of it also comes down to having clear-cut baby faces and heels. And I want to see these. I used to joke with Rich all the time. It's like when the Jets play the Chiefs, the Jets are baby faces to me and heels to him, and vice versa. He and I are friendly enough that we may say, "Oh, that was a good game." But ultimately, I want to see my team win, and he wants to see his team win.
But do you go to a football game together and just collectively chant NFL, NFL when there's really good play?
No, okay. No, we don't have that Rob Lowe hat from that meme, and that's kind of what wrestling has been missing, and the fact that you want people are there cheering for promotions and not cheering for individual wrestlers or against individual wrestlers because they like or don't like their character, and because of that, the wrestlers are irreplaceable. You can chant AEW for anyone that goes through a table or anyone that goes through that goes through a crazy dive. If I do it, I won't do it. I'll hurt myself. But if I did it in an AEW ring, you'll chant AEW for me, just like you would do for Dante Martin or Will Ospreay, because we're all doing the same thing, and we're not, because I'm nowhere near as talented as those gentlemen are.
Aspen in the chat says, I don't mind This Is Awesome chants, but I totally see why chanting AEW would be obnoxious. At least This Is Awesome is somewhat appreciative of what's happening in the ring, at least in my opinion. So Aspen, I don't see a big difference between the two of them, or much of a difference between them. The fans are still chanting either for the company, thank you for putting on this match, the wrestling here is great, or you're saying in this particular match, these wrestlers are putting on a great performance for me. This is awesome. And that's not the response you want. If the Jets and Chiefs are playing, and the fans in the fourth quarter are chanting, this is awesome, instead of let's go Jets or let's go Chiefs. I mean, the NFL has lost its way because people are now going, there's a reason people don't watch the NHL All-Star game in big numbers, but love the Stanley Cup Finals, because people don't want to see skills competitions. They want to see people working really hard to win a game with a structure that counts and stakes that are high, and everyone agreeing that winning the Stanley Cup or having a Super Bowl ring or whatever it is a prize worth fighting for. And then you have home teams. And in pro wrestling, ideally the home team is everywhere, and the away team is everywhere. It's not city by city; it changes, or it doesn't even change within the crowd. And so, to me, This Is Awesome is in the same bucket of obnoxiousness, or a sign of failure of the company. It is. I'm not saying we can stop it, but it is a sign of fans going, "We're here to tell you we appreciate you." Instead of, I mean, I don't want to go see Superman and then just in the middle of the movie be thinking, man, do I appreciate this directing and this acting and this screenwriting and all that. No, I just want to get wrapped up in the characters, in the story they're telling. I can talk about it afterwards in that way. So this is, the fans making themselves part of the show. And that did very much originate more than anywhere else in ECW. And it's unfortunate. But it doesn't seem like it's, I hear more people in power in wrestling companies and wrestlers saying that they appreciate it. And I think it is a sign of appreciation, and I think it is the wrong place for fans to show appreciation for you, and it's a sign of something being haywire that needs to be fixed or changed to get a peak fan experience. But I don't even think a lot of fans understand. If I'm a wrestler and fans are chanting "This is awesome," if I'm intent on drawing money and getting and giving fans a peak pro wrestling experience, I would see that as an insult and a sign of failure. The same way cheering a heel is not showing appreciation for them, but it is insulting them by going, "You have not convinced me you're a heel, but I appreciate your heel work, so I'm going to cheer for you." I just think that's not fans. It's not what wrestlers should be looking for from fans in the midst of a match.
Yeah, I mean, I was Justin and I went to SmackDown in Dayton in May, and WWE has a "This Is Awesome" segment like before the show, and I was flabbergasted because Justin knows how much I don't like that chant. Yep. He just looked at me kind of like, "It's over. Yep. It's on WWE now. You have to give up." I said, "I'll never give up."
There are a lot of people in positions of power in wrestling companies who it would not cross their mind that a "This Is Awesome" chant is a sign of something wrong. I mean, it's absolutely true that there are people in wrestling companies who think the highest achievement in pro wrestling is to have people chanting the name of your company and "This is awesome," or doing dueling chants, or singing "John Cena sucks" when he's a babyface, or booing Roman Reigns for 10 minutes in the Raw after Mania, because at least it's a reaction. They have waved the white flag, or they never knew better. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, there's frankly a lot of people in pro wrestling who haven't been pro wrestling fans long enough to have known that there was a better fan experience and an easier way to draw money that preceded "This Was Awesome" chance just being a thing. I cited it more than a dozen times over the years on podcasts. That article that said, as we all know, pro wrestling shows must start with the GM standing in the ring announcing what the matches are going to be. It's like, no, that's a relatively new thing. You are a new viewer, and it is horrible, and it should end, and it is bad for business, and that is not something that is required. It should be something that is decried. But if you've only been watching wrestling for 6 years and that's all you've seen, you would think that is but like, go watch some other stuff. Learn about it before you write about it. And yeah, there was if people went back and just watched like World Class Championship Wrestling with the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, they would see what the highest level is. So Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express, Vern Gagne against Nick Bockwinkel, Hulk Hogan against Nick Bockwinkel. Watch the crowd reactions for Dusty Rhodes at his peak as a babyface in Florida. Jerry Lawler's a babyface in the Mid-South Coliseum against a heel. There are lessons to be learned. It's not that long ago, and the footage is available. If all you've been watching is WWE and now AEW or TNA before that, and you don't understand, there's another way and it's better. Go research it, and then you're going to watch your show and go, wait, I want that response in 1983 and 1986 and 1979. That's what I want. That's way better. It's like eating McDonald's your whole life and thinking that's peak food experience. And it's like, and then you actually have like, a really good Chicago. What's that?
It's a really good burger. In case
You just like, and it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Yeah. Yeah, to me, like, "This Is Awesome" and AEW, that's just fast food chants. It's fans reacting to, and WWE or AEW in a way that isn't good. Anyway, a little bit off topic, but Adam Kidd said fans ruining wrestling. I will say it's not fans' fault. It's not. It's the wrestlers and the company. There is a way to steer people away. You talked about the "This Is Awesome" thing at SmackDown. Remember when they tweeted out, "Here's your chance to go chant what at Raw" on social media, and people flipped out, deservedly so, going, the person who did that in the social media department was freaking clueless. They don't understand that that's the most annoying thing that happens to wrestlers. any wrestler knows the last thing they want is a what chant in the middle of their promo. It is rude. It's obnoxious. It throws them off their game. There is no redeeming quality to what chants. It is like unwelcome. And yet the person in social media didn't know any better. They just, we'll create this. And they had people around who apparently said, yeah, that's a good thing. Let's post that. So there are absolutely people who don't understand kind of the first thing about pro wrestling who are making decisions, unfortunately. And it's on Tony Khan and Paul Levesque more than anyone to fix it. It's not the fans' fault. The fans are just followers. They're sheep having fun. and it's okay to pay money and have fun. But my point is, if you're a wrestler or promoter, you should not be proud of that.
Yeah, and I will say, Mitchell's put in a few things about in the chat. Your thoughts on Dustin Rhodes having multiple belts and wrestling against Kyle Fletcher in a Chicago street fight, presumably the main event of tomorrow's Collision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm doing the interview.
I mean, hopefully Kyle Fletcher wins, and we move on. I mean, I like Dustin, and I've been advocating for 6-7 years AEW should use him better. I would have preferred that 5 or 6 years ago. I do not. It's almost disqualifying to me that he wraps wrestlers' legs behind the middle rope and kicks them in the nuts, and he's a babyface. I just think that's so tasteless and like gross. And so I think he's falling back on some just really stupid cliches from the Attitude Era as Goldust, and he should have moved on from him. So I've lost. My strain is my praise is more restrained now because I just think that's just it's decades past and 2 characters ago past its freshness date or any worth. Do you agree with me on that? Like, I'm gonna put this guy's knees, rack him up on the ropes, and then I'm gonna charge and kick him in the nuts defenselessly. Yeah. And it's not done to someone who, like, quote, deserves it. Not that any heel necessarily deserves that unless they did it first, but it feels so lazy and tired. And like, I haven't, like Dustin going, I haven't had an original thought in 25 years.
Yeah. It doesn't fit his character now. You know, it fit his character back then, but it doesn't fit it now.
Yeah. Yeah. That said, it was a feel-good moment after Adam Cole. He got an AEW proper title belt, singles belt. It's cool. Overall, I'm a fan of Dustin. I'm just saying, I wish Dustin wrestled some old-style match that from 1975 or 1983 and dropped derivative Goldust stuff that it feels like he's just hanging on like some guy wearing a leather jacket who was a starting quarterback at his high school showing up at the game 14 years later and expecting people to still be into his catchphrase that he had back then. And everyone's looking at him going, who are you, dude? Who are you, old man? You 30-year-old, 32-year-old, whatever. That's what high school kids would think. With Dustin doing that, it's just, there's no context to it. It's just phoning it in. But that said, I don't think the question was asked, so I could go off on that one move that really irritates me almost as much as this is an AEW and WWE chance. But I just think Kyle Fletcher should get the belt and get pushed. I mean, there's an article today on PWTorch.com advocating for that. Just time to move on from Dustin pretty quickly. He had his moment. It was fine. The fact that it's a Chicago street fight, I guess, is to cover up for Dustin not wanting to have just a straightforward, old school, good match with Kyle Fletcher. But if there's someone who you could have a nice one last big title defense that's just in the ropes, tell a story, show that you've got it because Dustin has it. I think he still has it in him to not need a gimmick. Or it's Tony Khan just going, we need a little something extra, bro, to help ratings. And why are we doing a Chicago street fight? I mean, you should save gimmick matches for when they really, really count and they're really built up. And if you're having a Chicago street fight on your next TV show, there should be promos and a lot of talk about it on the previous show. And it was just mentioned in passing. So now you're trying to say, well, Chicago street fight makes up for the fact that we're not having Dustin cut a fiery promo or Kyle Fletcher cut a fire promo. Credit, they did a video package on him, but it's lazy shortcut stuff.
Yeah, they don't spend enough time building up Collision. I will say they did a better job this episode than the last one that I covered with you, but they need to make, if you're gonna have Collision, if it's gonna be a show that's on 2 hours a week, you got to make people watch it. You got to tie it into Dynamite.
Anything else you'd like to bring up, Chris, before we sign off?
No, I think I liked seeing Willow on the show. I can't remember the last time I saw her. I'm glad that they gave some time for her to talk about Thekla and the match. And Yeah, I think we had one real long match. So I think I pretty much covered everything.
I say this. I wasn't gonna necessarily read JB's email just because I didn't go to it soon enough, and usually I try to save some topics in his email for him. But I'll see him over a couple things here before we do officially sign off here. JB from Detroit said, "I love they're continuing the payoff to the downfall of the Bucks after losing EVP status. It's a very big deal in storyline and should be treated as such. The Jobbers chant tonight was uncharacteristically creative from the fans. So it fits the theme of what we're saying here. The fans are not particularly creative. I'm insulting our own target audience here on the podcast, but hopefully people understand where we're coming from here. Number 2, I'm glad the third Syndicate MJF storyline wasn't just completely abandoned. I'm okay with it being accelerated, but it deserves some sort of conclusion. The contract things needs to be addressed, though. Is the Hurt Syndicate just allowed to avoid it? Number 3, Christian is still acting pretty heelish and certainly got a heel reaction tonight. However, Nick Wayne, Sabian, and Mother Wayne got booed for attacking Christian as well. If the idea is to make Christian a face again, a team with Edge, what's the best path to get there for All Out in Toronto in September? Number 4, I'm assuming you get the Bucks against FTR in the finals. Who acts as faces? Who acts as heels? Hey, I asked that question too. Or do they have a traditional heel-heel matchup? This isn't exactly the most satisfying conclusion to a tournament. Also interesting that Mox and Hangman start at the bottom of the first hour rather than the main event. I suppose they wanted to maximize eyes on such an important matchup, but I feel like that both incentivizes casual viewers to tune out after and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I also think that tonight would have been a good time to main event with the women's tag. There has been enough comments on that in the chat. It didn't bother me that they put the match when they did because it guaranteed, although they have overruns, but it guaranteed there'd be plenty of time to have this match, even if it went 60 minutes. And I don't think it started at the bottom of the hour. I was going to look up exactly when it was here in my report. But yeah, did you have any issue, Chris, with that?
I didn't think so. I was very surprised it went on at the time, but I think the one thing that we will see, and I'm not someone who focuses on the quarter hours, but we will see how much people thought this match was important with how because it started, I think, in the 8:50s and ended, I think, 9:20 something maybe. Yeah. I don't have the exact time, but it'll be interesting to see if that match held the audience.
It started, the bell rang 55 minutes into the hour. So ring introduction started a couple minutes before that. That left room for a 60-minute draw and post-match celebration. So I think it makes total sense to start it then. If you start it at 35 minutes into the second hour so that it's the last match on the show, you're telling people this match is going to go about a half hour. We'll have a 5-minute overrun. So you'll see 25, 30 minutes. By starting it a little bit before the start of the second hour, it's not just about the ratings strategy, and that's what our peak viewership is, and we'll hold them longer. It also is a way of saying we are leaving room for this match to have a conclusion, and we're not making you think there's no way it's going to go more than 30. So I'm totally fine with it. If it started 30 minutes into the hour, I mean, that's different. I don't really have a huge issue with it, but I would have not had a problem with them saying, if this match goes an hour, we are going to bump 2 scheduled matches, Ricochet against Mark Briscoe and Toni Storm and Windsor against Athena and Billy Starks, to Collision tomorrow night. If we go an hour, we are allowed to go as long as we need to for our main event, but we can't add 2 more matches onto it once we go past the 2-hour mark. So it'll move to Collision. That's an old school way of covering your base, and I'd have been fine with that. I think they could have done a little bit more to make it seem like Ricochet Briscoe was worth sticking around for. But I think following up with Toni Storm is good because people like Toni Storm. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. All right. Let's see if I can find the tab with the email on it that I was just reading from JB here. I got to clean up my tabs. I know a lot of people relate to that. Here we are. Good. I found it. Athena's O-Face is one of the better looking finishers in wrestling currently. What are the chances Athena takes the title off of Toni? Would that be the right move? It certainly signals strong confidence and investment in her by TK. I'd be fine with it at the end of a feud. I think if Toni retains, it might defend Athena down a little bit. If she wins, it puts Toni on the chase again. I think you can make it work both ways. I don't have a super strong instant feeling on that. Chris, how about you? And also, I don't know if we covered it. I know the chat brought it up. Should Athena have just lost the ROH title first, or is that kind of like, I remember back in the day, Bo Dallas lost the NXT title and then he got promoted to Raw. It's like, why do you get promoted when you lose? Why would Athena get promoted to go after the AEW title if she lost the ROH title first? So maybe that's the mentality. So a couple questions in there to throw to you on that.
I don't think she should lose it. I think part of it is that part of her story that they are trying to tell is that she's a dominant world champion, even in a smaller brand. And so if she loses it, that takes a little bit of the luster off her.
Mm-hmm.
I think she should win the title. I think Toni Storm is better as a character chasing the title. I also think Toni Storm is kind of, because her character is so unique, she may be better off in different feuds, not involving the championship. But I do think that Toni Storm will retain, and Athena will be like many of her opponents, Megan Bay and Chris Statlander being a couple who have a feud and then they lose and then they go away.
Yep. All right. I think Mark Briscoe winning the main event tonight opens up the possibility we get MJF versus Briscoe for the number one contendership for Hangman's title, so MJF can legitimately, quote, earn the opportunity for a title at Forbidden Door, as Hangman has been talking about, while keeping his Casino Gauntlet title shot for a heel moment elsewhere. What if they add that stipulation to their main event match announced for next week? I mean, it was sort of implied. I mean, I don't think it was officially structured explicitly, but I think that's they implied that that's the case. MJF, this I meant to bring up earlier. MJF mentioning that Briscoe, quote, dropped the comedy routine tonight seemed very intentional, almost as if they were listening to the Dynamite post show last week. Todd Martin went off on that on the Fix a couple weeks ago too. That, Briscoe, after MJF insulted his brother, he did this kind of goofy promo that cracked up Renee Paquette backstage before the pay-per-view. And it does seem like they corrected course on that and realized it. And I think Briscoe covered it in the promo tonight, going, first time you insult my brother, shame on me, but second time, shame on you. Or, kind of played that. I don't know why you get to say horrible things about your dead. He'll say horrible things about your dead brother once, but I think he was trying to say the way he reacted the first time was sort of, I'm going to laugh it off. I'm not going to let you hurt me. But when you do it a second time, now you've really crossed the line and I'm going to be serious. I think that's kind of what he's going for, to kind of clean up the mess in aisle 3. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really important. I think, you have to be able to take this, this tragedy that impacted his family. I'm surprised, and I haven't seen that they haven't mentioned at all the Players Tribune documentary that was done on the Briscoe. I haven't seen all of it, but I can't imagine why they haven't brought that up and shown a clip of it on the show to get him even more sympathy for him. I do have to say, though, AEW spent a lot of time, or Tony Khan spent a lot of time talking about why Jay Briscoe was not in AEW when he was alive. And so part of it, for me personally, as a big Briscoe fan, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that they bring him up so much in death when they would not have him on the show when he was alive. But, I can't speak for the family or anything like that. I have to say it doesn't sit right with me.
I would say they don't want to punish Mark for homophobic comments Jay made, but they wanted to make sure network executives didn't feel like they were going to be called out for featuring somebody on their TV show who said homophobic things years earlier and maybe hadn't showed the right contrition. But then once Jay died, it was like, well, we can promote Mark because Jay doesn't come with the deal. Mark deserves to have his own chance. Obviously, they paid big tribute to Jay. I mean, it's kind of like the Hogan thing. Like, what do we honor when we felt he dishonored himself enough that we wouldn't bring him onto our show? But we won't fire him from ROH either. We just won't feature him on our top platform. I think it was a complicated situation. I think they sort of felt like we can't have. I mean, they could have had Mark on the show and just not talk about Jay. That'd be weird. Or maybe mention it in passing, but not make a big deal out of him. But I mean, I think Mark was a unfair victim of comments Jay made. Chris,
yeah, which is fine. I understand that, but now they're using him as sort of a measure for sympathy. And again, MJF did it multiple times. Jericho did it. Absolutely. It was one thing if they did it in passing once, you could do it. But this was something that was referenced on the show week after week. Yeah. And that just, to me, is like they don't have to employ Jay Briscoe if they don't want to for the comments he made. That's fine. But now they're trying to there's an advantage now to bring him up on the show, and they're trying to maximize that.
Yeah, and I guess the argument is he's not going to benefit. Jay isn't. He's not on TV. He's not going to benefit, and the heat we're going to take for bringing him up is going to seem tasteless because Jay is dead. So, but Mark can still love him and be sad that people are making fun of him. I mean, I see the rationale in we're not going to pay him and feature him, but once he was dead, it's part of Mark's story, and we're going to tell that story.
Yeah, no, I see that. I definitely. It's a tough subject, especially for someone Jay Briscoe's younger than me. With kids, it's a tough. It's a tough.
Wear your seatbelt, folks. Wear your seatbelt. That's one of the lessons because my understanding is he wasn't, and Vince McMahon drives slower. He almost died the morning Hulk Hogan died in that car wreck that got lost in the headlines with all the headlines with Hogan. But he's apparently, police records show he's accused of driving like 80 miles an hour and bashed into somebody, and it could have been worse. So yeah, don't text and drive. Well, we're ending with a public service announcement, Chris. How to safely
definitely. Man, I tell people all the time, seatbelts are a newer thing, even something like car seats, which when I became a parent, became very well aware. And then I was like, was I in a car seat when I was a kid? I don't think that was a requirement, but times change and you got to be safe with these very powerful vehicles.
I was watching Duster on HBO Max, and shame on them for canceling that. That was such a fun show, just the 70s motif and the characters. It's like Breaking Bad meets Dukes of Hazzard meets Rockford Files, which is just a really, really fun, well done show, but just didn't get quite the following it needed. They're driving around like on freeways, and it's like one hand on the wheel, and there's a kid just without a seatbelt on or in the front seat with a I don't know. I mean, it's like totally played into how cavalier people were in the 70s about this thing called a seatbelt that only wimps wear, which is just so dumb. Just put your damn seatbelt on. Bad things happen when you don't wear it. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, Chris, any TV recommendations? Any TV show or movie recommendations before we sign off?
No, I don't. We've been traveling. We're in New York. I haven't seen anything in the last week or so. Just been traveling around with family and taking my dad to Slammiversary where he wore a suit.
Cool. Yes. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Always fun interacting with you guys. And check out the flagship yesterday. Rich Fan joined me, and we spent an hour on Hulk Hogan, a little over an hour, and then the second half of the show on a SummerSlam preview and a bunch of other topics. And please go VIP, support us, and get a ton in return, including my Hulk Hogan podcast series, which is ongoing. Todd Martin did a 40-plus minute walkthrough Hulk Hogan's career on The Fix last week. I've done in-depth coverage of different segments of Hogan's career, and more to come. If you are a VIP member and have questions about Hulk Hogan's career you want me to address, askwadekeller@gmail.com is a way to get onto the VIP Wade Keller hotline in the Ask the Editor segment that I did part 1 of on Hogan yesterday, and I'll do another one soon. For VIP membership, you can get a 7-day free trial. Search PWTorch VIP on Patreon or Spotify. And you can also get information on all the ways to sign up, including full VIP membership, which unlocks our 35 plus years of archives, Pro Wrestling Torch newsletters going back to the late 1980s, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 1990s, over 2 decades of podcasts, including pay-per-view roundtables on WWE, TNA, ROH, and now AEW, dating back more than 20 years, and a customizable podcast feed for all our new content and our VIP Vault. Podcast Vault, which again is marching through all our coverage of Chris Benoit. So just tons of benefits come with VIP membership, including a really slick, nice, ad-free, fast-loading desktop and mobile site, which includes my column on maybe being the very first Hulkamaniac. And that's on the back page of this week's Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. There's a front. You can be reading my cover story on Hulk Hogan right now. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks to Chris Maitland, my co-host, and we'll talk to you all Friday night after SmackDown and on the VIP side of things on The Fix tomorrow and more.